I'm going to talk about using Alexa offline. So I know a lot of you are familiar with the Amazon Alexa devices, and then all of the function they have too for using ECUs in the home. So being able to control things like your TV, your lights, your phone, and different other integrations in the home. I know one limitation is with Alexa is that a lot of people don't have Wi-Fi, and that's a huge barrier. And that's a big barrier for a lot of people I worked with as well. I work a lot with individuals with disabilities to help them find adaptions in their home to help them be more independent. And we work with a lot of people in rural Minnesota, and a lot of those individuals might not have Wi-Fi, or some people might not be able to afford it, or they might just not have very reliable Wi-Fi network. So we want to look at different ways we can not be so dependent on Wi-Fi and um, also be able to use Alexa because Alexa is a really, really reliable and its voice recognition interface is superior to any other thing that's out there right now, and the cost of Alexa is significantly cheaper than anything that you're going to find that's a designated assistive technology device, and it's readily available on like Amazon.com, and it's something that somebody can go buy and um, get really easily. So we want to find ways that we can make Alexa a little bit more accessible to everyone, even if they don't have a Wi-Fi network set up in their home. So these are just some of the benefits of Alexa. Like I said, it's a really cost-effective option for environmental controls. It's got a really great voice recognition interface. It's very accurate. Amazon has a lot of engineers, and they're one of the biggest companies. So obviously, they put a lot of resources into building Alexa up to be really accurate across most voices. And it's really easy to integrate with a lot of different environmental control applications, like for TV, lights, phone, and then we've even used it for like things like call light in the hospital system as well. So, like I said, some limitations of Alexa are one, it is really dependent on Wi-Fi, or historically it has been. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can move away from using Wi-Fi so much in the home. So if somebody doesn't have Wi-Fi, Alexa is no longer an option. Also, if somebody has a little bit spotty Wi-Fi, if I set up plugs in their home that are Wi-Fi dependent, that's not going to be a reliable source for them to turn on and off their lights. So Wi-Fi is really a huge limitation to Alexa. Uh, there's also a problem too with Wi-Fi in that Alexa, when you speak to Alexa, it collects your voice data and can send that up to the cloud over Wi-Fi. And some people might not be um, too happy with that. I know there's a lot of, especially older individuals, who might be a little bit wary of that. And I understand that too because it's kind of scary. Alexa's kind of always listening. It can always hear what you say, and a lot of that voice data can be stored as well. To my knowledge, obviously, they don't do anything um, malicious with it, but at the same time, it is an area of concern for a lot of people. So if we're able to cut that tie with Wi-Fi, that voice data, it can't even collect it and it can't send it anywhere. So you can kind of relieve that tension that somebody might have, that they might be worried that it's collecting their voice data and it's sending it to somewhere where they don't know. Also, things like in the hospital system, you're not able to use Alexa because it's not HIPAA compliant, because just for those similar reasons, because it's always listening and it can send that information up to the cloud. And then also there's like in nursing homes and other areas too, Alexa is not allowed for those same reasons. So we really need to find a way that we can use Alexa without Wi-Fi. So about oh, so about 4 years ago, um, Amazon released a device called the Echo Plus, and the Echo Plus has a built-in Zigbee hub, and Zigbee is another environmental control method. Sorry, Alexa, stop. As you guys can see here, Alexa's always listening. That's, like I said, one of the unfortunate parts of her. So Amazon released a device called the Echo Plus, and it has a built-in Zigbee hub. And what Zigbee is, it's another way besides Wi-Fi that the Echo devices can control things like lights and other devices in your home. And I'm going to talk about more about Zigbee later. I know a lot of people might not be familiar with it, but I'm going to go more in depth on it and kind of explain what it is and how it works in a little bit. Along with the Echo Plus devices and Zigbee, Amazon released a new feature called local voice control. And local voice control pretty much allows any of the devices that are connected via Zigbee to an Amazon Echo device to be controlled without Wi-Fi. So this is directly right here from Amazon.com, and it says local voice control lets you use certain controls with Zigbee with your smart home devices when your Echo device with a built-in smart home hub isn't connected to the internet. So that's saying that when your Amazon Echo device is completely offline, it's still able to control those Zigbee devices without Wi-Fi. So the Amazon Echo devices with a built-in Zigbee hub include these ones here. They expanded it beyond the Echo Plus devices, and it now includes just the standard Echo 4th generation that just came out, along with the Echo Show 10-inch 3rd generation. So what is Zigbee? So I think of Zigbee as it's a radio frequency communication method. So radio frequency is kind of like how you control your garage door opener for anyone who has a garage door opener. So how a garage door opener works is when you push the button, it sends a radio frequency signal to the receiver on your garage door, and then your garage door opens. Zigbee works similar to that, except a little bit more advanced. So when an Echo device is connected to a Zigbee plug, it can send a signal to your Zigbee plug over a radio frequency signal to tell it to turn on. And then Zigbee is a little bit more advanced, where it can actually send a signal back to your Echo device to tell your Echo device that it's turned on. Whereas like a garage door opener doesn't have two-way communication, Zigbee does. So Zigbee can actually communicate back and forth with your Echo device. So if you have a plug, when your Echo device tells it to turn on, your plug can tell your Echo device back that it has turned on. Wi-Fi is a little different because with Wi-Fi, even though your plug and your Echo device are connected in the same house to the same Wi-Fi, how Wi-Fi works is when I tell my Echo device to turn on my Wi-Fi plug, it has to go all the way up to the Echo server, and then it has to go over to the server for my plug. So if I have a Wemo plug, it has to communicate to my Wemo server, and then it has to come back all the way down and communicate with my plug. And then when my plug wants to tell my Echo that I've turned on, it has to go all the way up to the Wemo server, all the way over to the Echo server, and then all the way back to my Echo device. As you can see, this is a really long path, and that's why when you sometimes set up Wi-Fi plugs, and you tell your Echo to turn on the Wi-Fi plug, it sometimes takes a while because this is a really long path, and if your Wi-Fi isn't really reliable, this can take a really long time. Whereas Zigbee doesn't depend at all on Wi-Fi. It's just a direct communication method, so it doesn't have to leave your home at all. It's just like radio frequency, where it just sends a signal out in your home to your plug, and then your plug communicates directly back to your Echo device. So just because it's a local signal and it doesn't leave your home like Wi-Fi, it is one of the most reliable options for environmental controls. In my opinion, it's better than Bluetooth, it's better than infrared, and it's much better than Wi-Fi. And it can travel through walls, and it's got a pretty long range on it too. So you can have a lot of plugs connected at different locations in your house, and your Echo will still be able to control them. So the next thing I want to talk about, if anyone has any questions too during this time, they can put it in the chat too on what Zigbee is.
So this is Megan. We have a question here saying, can you use Alexa to make a call on Zigbee?
No, so Zigbee, and I'm going to talk about the only devices that work on Zigbee, but Zigbee is kind of limited right now, where the devices that you can control via Zigbee include plugs, light bulbs, there's locks that you can control via Zigbee, and then a couple other devices. So there's not a ton of devices, but for simple things like lights, plugs, and like a fan or something like that in your home, those would be simple things that you'd be able to control via Zigbee using the Echo device. So next I want to talk about local voice control. And this is using Zigbee so your Echo device actually doesn't even have to be connected to Wi-Fi at all to control your devices in your home. So how a Amazon Echo device typically controls a device like a plug is when I tell my Echo device to turn on a light bulb, and I say, Echo, turn on light, the Echo device processes the command, And the command for the light is actually stored up here on the Alexa server. So in order for my command to reach that plug, when I say echo turn on light, it has to go all the way up to the server here over Wi-Fi, retrieve the command light, come all the way back down, and then it can control my light, which is connected to my plug. If I have Zigbee connected and with local voice control actually allows all Zigbee devices to be loaded directly onto the Echo device. So the name for the device that's connected over Zigbee is loaded directly on my Echo device. So if I have a plug called light, that command is actually loaded directly into the Echo system. It's not connected at all. It's not loaded onto the server. So when I say Echo turn on light, it will go directly to my Echo device, and it doesn't have to go all the way up here to the Echo server. It can retrieve that command directly loaded onto my device and then control that plug. So now I don't even need Wi-Fi at all. It works all locally, and you don't ever need to go to the Echo server. So my Echo device can actually still control this Zigbee plug without being connected to Wi-Fi. So if you want to be able to connect your Echo system, let's say you're working with someone and they want to be able to control a couple lights in their home and a fan, and you want to connect those up via plugs. So what you can do is you can connect your Amazon Echo Plus or other Echo device with a built-in Zigbee hub to an account on Wi-Fi, let's say at my apartment. And I can set up all those plugs and all those other Zigbee devices and pair them to my Echo at my apartment on my Wi-Fi. And then I just let it sit for 24 hours, and all those commands are loaded locally on my Echo device. And then I can actually bring them over to that person's house, and I don't even have to connect it to their Wi-Fi. And I just plug everything in, and everything will just work because it doesn't have to be connected to Wi-Fi because of local voice control to control those different devices. And here's just a diagram just showing that. So if I wanted to set someone up with local voice control so their Echo device doesn't have to be connected to Wi-Fi for them to control their plugs and other Zigbee devices, I can connect all of the devices at my apartment here and connect it to an Echo account at my apartment, and then connect all the devices to my Echo device at my apartment on my Wi-Fi. And then I can just unplug the system, bring it all the way over to their place, and then plug everything in, and it'll just work. Because once again, because of local voice control in Zigbee, not needing Wi-Fi, it doesn't need to be connected to their Wi-Fi network in order for it to control those devices. So they'll actually be able to voice control all of those devices in their home without ever having to connect their Echo device to Wi-Fi.
Drew, this is Megan. We have a
Yes.
question that kind of fits in here. Have people ever had issues where maybe them and their neighbor are using Zigbee and they're interfering with each other's signals?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah. Have people ever had an issue where maybe two neighbors are using Zigbee devices, and have they ever had problems with someone's signal interrupting someone else's signal?
So I think that could be a possibility. I've never seen it before, but it could possibly happen if the two Zigbee networks were set up really close to each other. So if you had two Echo devices right next to each other and they were both set up on separate accounts and they had separate Zigbee networks, they could maybe interfere. But if they're in separate rooms, it shouldn't be a problem. So some of the benefits of using Alexa offline and using local voice control. So if I once again set up the Echo device with all the Zigbee devices at my apartment, moved it to someone else's place, and so it's working completely offline, include that it's not dependent at all on an unreliable Wi-Fi network. So once again, if they don't have Wi-Fi or if I bring it over to their place and they do have Wi-Fi, but I never connect it to their network, even if their Wi-Fi goes down, it doesn't matter because none of these Echo devices are dependent on Wi-Fi. And it also works for, once again, individuals who might not have Wi-Fi. Also, it kind of bypasses the worry for someone who's a little bit hesitant about using an Echo device because it's collecting its voice data. This, if you connect it this way, you can really ensure them that there's no possible way that Amazon can get any of their voice data because none of it can be collected by them because it's not connected to the internet. The way that Amazon collects your voice data when you speak to an Echo device is when you talk to it, it sends it up to the Amazon server. So if it's not connected to the Amazon server, it can't use your voice data at all. So that really kind of, I think, when I was working at a conference and kind of ensuring people that I think they were a little bit more um, open to using an Amazon device as long as it was connected this way. It's also HIPAA compliant because once again, it's not connected to a Wi-Fi network. That voice data can't go anywhere. So if you connect it in a hospital system or a nursing home, there's no possible way any of that information can get anywhere, and it's not stored anywhere. So there's no HIPAA compliant issues from connecting it via local voice control in a hospital setting or a nursing home. Also, one other really good benefit of this too is one problem I've really seen with people, especially for someone who's like older um, who might not be as familiar with an Amazon device. If you say a command a little bit wrong, and let's say I say turn on light, and it for some reason thought I said turn on a song, it'll start playing music, and then that person will get maybe really confused and they won't know what to do. If Amazon's not connected to Wi-Fi, all that it can do is control these Zigbee devices. So if I accidentally say the command wrong, it'll just say I'm not connected to Wi-Fi. So it won't do something crazy because it's not connected to the internet like it usually does. If I give it a command, it might play a music or it might tell me the news and it might confuse the person. Whereas if it's not connected to Wi-Fi, it only can control those devices. So it really limits the commands that you can give it that it'll actually do something with.
Drew, this is Megan. We have a question asking, where can you buy Zigbee compatible plugs?
Yes, so my last slide, I'm going to talk about kind of where you can get Zigbee-based devices and then what devices work over Zigbee. But Amazon has them. Like if you type in Zigbee plugs on Amazon, there's a couple different options, and I'll kind of tell you my favorite ones. But pretty much any Zigbee-based plug will work perfectly fine. But I'll talk about those mostly at the end. So some other benefits of using Zigbee. So even if you're connecting a system for someone, they're using Wi-Fi, Zigbee, I think, is still a better option than using Wi-Fi plugs. So if I'm working with someone and they have a Wi-Fi network in their home, I still always opt for Zigbee over Wi-Fi because once again, it's more reliable. If their Wi-Fi goes down, the system will still work. It's also much easier to set up Zigbee devices. So for setting up a Wi-Fi based plug, I know everyone who has done that before has gone through the headache of plugging in the plug, having to set that up through a separate app, enabling the skill in Alexa, and then having to go through this whole process of connecting it. With Zigbee plugs, all that you have to do is plug in the Zigbee plug, say discover devices, and then it finds the plug, and then you're done. So it's really easy to connect them. It's also really easy to support them too. So right now, since everything's virtual, if I had a bunch of people set up with Wi-Fi plugs that I was trying to support when they're having problems, it would be a huge headache, and I would always have to go out to their home to figure out what the problem is. With Zigbee-based devices, it's really easy for me to figure out what the problem is because I don't have to worry about because Wi-Fi-based devices have all those different steps you have to go through. So I have to figure out which step in the process is the problem happening, or is their Wi-Fi not working? Is the Amazon server not working? Is the Wemo plug server not working? The Zigbee, since the signal is all local, you don't have to worry about all those problems. It's the only problem that could be is that the Echo and the Zigbee plug aren't connected, and then you just have to reset the plug again and set it back up. And then here's a link too at the bottom, and I'll share I'll share these slides too, so everyone will have these available. But I have a link here that has a link to the site where Amazon puts all of the Zigbee compatible devices that are compatible with their Amazon-based products. So the other thing I want to talk about too is just explain why Wi-Fi based plugs are inferior to Zigbee based plugs. So let's say you have someone who's set up on 15 different Wi-Fi based plugs throughout their house. So every single one of these Wi-Fi plugs is set up throughout their home for a different light. And then I have someone with 15 base Zigbee plugs set up in their home and they're all connected to a light as well. Let's say they get a new router, which actually happens quite a bit more often than I would have thought from when I started working in the home. If they get a new router and now they have a new Wi-Fi network, I have to go on and reset every single one of these plugs up to their new Wi-Fi network and set up their Echo device to their new Wi-Fi network. If they have 15 Zigbee plugs, since these Zigbee plugs aren't even connected to Wi-Fi, they're just directly connected to my Echo device, all that I have to do is reset up the Echo device to their Wi-Fi network, and then everything else will just work. And since they have local voice control as well, even if they get a new Wi-Fi network, during the time that before I connect their Echo device to their new Wi-Fi network, it will still be able to control all their Zigbee devices because of local voice control. So here are the devices right now that are out there that work over Zigbee. So there are a lot of different plugs besides this one right here that the Echo can connect to over Zigbee, but the Sylvania Zigbee plug is my favorite and I found is the most reliable one. There's also one called the INNR Zigbee plugs as well, which are pretty reliable. There's a lot of different Zigbee locks out there. So if somebody needs to be able to control their front door lock by voice, there's a lot of different Zigbee locks. There's these devices called third reality light switches, and these actually sit over the top of your light switch and have a little motor in them to flip your light switch on and off. And these can connect over Zigbee. And also all Hue light bulbs can connect over Zigbee as well to your Echo device. So you actually don't need a Hue hub to connect to a Zigbee-based Echo device. And then there's a device called a Zigbee relay, which can also connect to your Echo device. And sometimes I can use this for if somebody wants to be able to voice activate their garage door, power door, or call light system. Okay, so that's my presentation on how to use your Echo device offline. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, you can email me. Otherwise, right now too is a good time to ask questions if you have any.
This is Megan. We have quite a few questions that came in the chat in the Q&A. Somebody wanted, can you clarify, are you able to use both Wi-Fi plugs and Zigbee plugs in your home at the same time?
Yes, you can use Wi-Fi and Zigbee at the same time. So using Zigbee-based devices doesn't make it so you can't use your Wi-Fi devices anymore. I combine them all the time because there's no device right now that can control the TV over Zigbee. I usually opt for a Wi-Fi based TV controller, TV control, and I'm usually using the Zigbee based devices for like plugs and lights and other Zigbee devices that are available.
Great, and I know we have other presenters to get to, but one more question on Zigbee. What's the price range for the plugs, and are you able to share a link to some of your favorites in the chat?
Yes, I can share, while the other presenters are presenting, I can share some links to the different devices. So the price of them, it initially was much higher. They've actually come down quite a bit. So you can actually get a 2-pack of them for about $20 right now. So they're going to be a little bit more expensive than like the cheaper Wi-Fi plugs, but they're still not like absurdly priced. They used to be like $20 each, but now they've come down quite a bit.
Great, thanks, Drew. I know we have a lot of questions that are in, but we have 2 more presenters to get to. So let's go ahead. If you're all okay, we'll move on to Sue, and then if we have time for more questions at the end, we'll come back to them.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Drew.
Yep, no problem.
And now I'd like to welcome Sue to come present. Thank you, Sue.
Hi, how are you guys? All right, so I'm going to screen share now. I am Sue, and I'm an occupational therapist, and I work in Minnesota, and I work in private practice. I have a state grant, and I do assistive technology services in people's homes. And our newest program is for people 65 and older, but we also do have another program where we see all ages. So today, my focus is going to be on technology solutions that are out there, both low tech to higher tech environmental controls. What I'm going to show you today, some can work without Wi-Fi and some do need Wi-Fi. So I'll try to distinguish that to you. My topic was very broad to do in 20 minutes. So I narrowed it to some products that you might not know about, but these are not all encompassing, of course. The first step is if a person doesn't know like what assistive technology could benefit to their home or to their needs, if you have a local AT assessor or someone that can come to your home to help you look at what you need, that's really helpful. Everybody has different needs and different abilities. So really matching all the technology choices to what you need to control and how you can best control it and what your environment supports is really important. So that's in our state why we have the assistive technology services that Drew and I do. That person-centered matching of the technology and the demands of the environment can really help you to make some good choices about what will work, because nobody wants you to get something that you can't use and then goes in a closet or in a drawer. So matching, if it's low tech to high tech, it's important to note that low tech is just as important, because whatever helps you to be able to do things or the person to be able to do things is what's important. So the good thing about low tech solutions is that they're usually tried and true. They don't take a lot of training to use, and they are what they are. So they're easy to understand, they're easy to put in. Now, they don't always meet everyone's needs, but when they do, that's the plus side to them, and they're low cost, easily available. When we need to go to higher tech solutions, like Drew pointed out, if they're not local controlled, we get into the weeds sometimes with it being a little bit harder to learn, a little bit harder to set up, and a little bit harder to support. So we want to make sure people know that up front, and that we do the right training, and that we know that people have the right tech support, because nobody, again, wants someone to get something they can't use. I'm going to start with the lower tech technologies and then move into some of the higher technologies that are available. Um, we use a lot of things that you can buy at Home Depot, Menards, Lowe's, whatever your home supply store is in your area. There are a lot of remote controlled plugs or lights that a person can use, that you can pull up to if you're in a chair, and they can be mounted so you can push a button for things to go on and off and to dim. There are a lot of motion sensor lights that we use that are either battery powered or can be a light bulb that is put into, that has a motion sensor on, to a light. We use a lot of motion sensor lights for someone who needs to get up to go to the bathroom at night, or gets up at the dark time of the evening to be able to do something for their cares, and they don't want to leave their lights on all night long, but they need them on to be safe, and the person can't turn them on for themselves as they go. So the motion sensor lights can be set up to go off as the person passes through the hallway and into the bathroom, or wherever it is the person normally goes. They can be set up, or they can be also set up to one light will have the other ones go on, so the path is lit up before the person walks through that path. Very easy, very low expense, very readily available. We also do a lot through devices that people already have. So if somebody already knows how to use their smartphone, or they have a tablet they're already using, or a computer they're already using, we can add apps like Apple Smart Home, any type of app that has some very simple either Wi-Fi based plugs or controls that someone can do in their home. And again, sometimes the simple works great for someone, and we can just do that. Readily available, easy to teach, cost effective, and works all the time the same way. For memory aids, there are a lot of memory aids out there. So what I did is just wanted to point out to you some unique features that I think about when I'm looking at reminder tools and memory aids. Voice recorders are still wonderful. We use voice recorders a lot in our work, that they can be simple, where a person just goes in and leaves themselves voice dictation to play back when they need it. There are voice recorders that also will allow you to save up to 10 different types of messages, and then be able to play just back the one that you want to hear, so it's not all in a string. So there's a lot of different types of voice recorders we can pick, and they're usually very easy to use. Some have very large buttons, very little buttons now to use, and voice recognition built in. I also have a lot of people that use smartphones, and there are more simplistic, like this is the Jitterbug smartphone. There are smartphones that are more simplistically laid out so that you have all of the things that you normally would use laid out like this in a picture type fashion. So it's more upfront, not so overwhelming like an iPhone would be or an Android might be. And you can then use that phone, if you're used to it, to do voice recorded messages, to set reminders for yourself, to be able to tell you when certain things need to be done. You can also add, if you already have Alexa, you can add that app onto a smartphone, and some of those reminders you built into Alexa could be reminding you through your phone. Medication reminders, there's all different types of medication reminders. This one is Dose Health. They're in Minnesota, but they sell all over. But there's all different kinds from very small ones to larger ones. The nice thing about the medication reminders are they can be set up by a nurse or a caregiver, but the person can then get reminders and cues to take their medication throughout the day by themselves or throughout the week by themselves. And then the reminder tool can alert someone and that person if they didn't take their medication on time. It also, this one, the Dose one, can send alerts to your phone, text messages to your phone, or whatever other tool you're using that it can send a message to that you forgot to take your medication and remind you to do it. And then at a certain point can remind whoever you have as your backup on there that too. And then this tool can also send messages and reminders about other things that you might want reminders on throughout the day because it has a calendar function. So oftentimes when we're thinking of a memory tool, we can build off something that somebody already is using, or we can add things into a tool that we know we want for medication, but the person might need reminders for other things too. Because what we don't want to do is introduce too many tools at one time. If we can keep a tool structured towards memory and reminder, but it does multiple things that the person needs for memory and reminder aids, all the better. And then alerting devices. There's all different type of alerting devices depending on if the person can hear, if they have good vision, so that the person can get alerts in the way they need them. We do a lot of strobe lights for people who need a visual alert, and those can be added to doorbells. They can be added to when the phone rings. They can be added to when the fire alarm is going off in a home or an apartment. The strobes can be really large and evident, or they can be more subtle because everybody has different needs and different visual responses. There are also sonic ways to vibrate when there's an alert that needs to happen. So like if you're in bed and you need an alarm clock, the clock that I show here has a sonic bed shaker. So that helps to alert someone who needs to have that sensation to be able to know that it's time to get up. And then there's all different types of timer alerts that can be talking alerts that can have time visually shown on it, but it can tell the person what the alert is for also. And you can set usually often multiple alerts throughout the day. Now, the one I have pictured here in the middle is very small, but there are some that have a larger screen that can alert the person, vibrate, send a message, and also say something. So there's many things you can set up with alerting devices now too. This is for low vision aids. We've come a long way with low vision aids being built into a lot of devices that we use, but oftentimes I still have people that I see that do need to have some additional magnification. But the reason I show a tablet on here is that a lot of our tablets now have apps that we can put on them. So if I already have somebody that has an iPad or an Android, I can add applications, sometimes they're even free, to have magnification or to have something where you can take a photo of it and it can tell you what you're seeing. So there's a lot of things we can do with apps. So I will do that if a person already has a tool they like. I'll add those apps onto that smartphone, or I'll add it onto their tablet. If not, then, or if the magnification is needed at home for a different reason, we can get magnifiers that can go in a purse that can go with you, like the one with the orange around it. That magnification can magnify things so that you can boldly see them. It has a lighting behind it, so when you hold it up to something you can't see, you can read it yourself. It can also read it to you. There's all different kinds of magnifiers with a light, like you see in the middle, and all different sizes of it. Can be fold up, can be portable, can be stationary if the person's putting a book under it or a letter under it. Now on to environmental controls. Drew already talked a lot about Amazon Alexa, so I'm not going to talk a lot about that, but we also like it for either using the Wi-Fi or using the local voice control. There's a lot of helpful settings within the Alexa app so that we can get that set up for somebody. A lot of times when you try to wake Alexa up and ask it to do something, it's hard for people when they're getting used to it to know if Alexa heard them or not. It has a ring around it that'll light up, but you can also add auditory feedback. So if the person can't see the ring, maybe that Alexa is behind them or in a spot where they can't see, adding that beep so that you know that it heard you, and adding the beep when it's done with its command can really be a good feedback tool. You can change the word that wakes it up to make it an easier word or more understandable. Now, unfortunately, we can't change it to any word. I'm hoping we can someday, but there's 4 words that you can change it to. You can also change when you're adding things into the device you want to control. That's where you have a lot of control about changing the names of how you're going to turn a light on or how you're going to do different things in different rooms. And I always make that word be something that makes sense to that person and it's easy for them to say and easy for them to remember. We use a lot of settings like drop-in, so that if I have somebody who wants to use an intercom to alert a family member or their caregiver that they need help getting out of bed, or they're need help for something on the lower level and their family member or caregivers on the upper level. If you have Alexas in different rooms and they're on the same account, you can set them up to drop into other rooms in your house and talk to the people that are in those rooms, which is very nice to use an intercom like that. I also have had people use that where they put a Alexa device in their family member's home that help support them that might be blocks away from them, and they're on the same account, and they can drop into them from wherever they are and say, hey, I just wanted to let you know I'm home now and everything's good, or whatever they want to say. You can, if you have Wi-Fi connected on to your Alexa, that's where you can do calling and you can add in all of your contacts, and you can do video calling if you have the Alexa Show. Now, these are some things that you can add on if you do have an Alexa, and the ones that obviously have Wi-Fi, you do have to have internet to be able to control. So one is a video doorbell, and I have a lot of people that use the video doorbell to see who's at the door before they answer it, to interact even with them. Sometimes not even ever having to open the door then for safety, but if they do, then they can see and interact with the person before they open the door. This can be something that someone uses with their smartphone or with their Alexa Show or with their voice. Door locks are another thing. Now, this one is controlled by Zigbee, and I do pick Zigbee for door locks because that is more reliable. And then this is something that could be controlled without Wi-Fi, and this can be controlled through your voice. To be able to lock and unlock the door. So like if you had a Ring doorbell, you could see who's at the door. And if you can't get to the door to unlock it yourself, or you physically can't do the lock, then you'd be able to use your voice to be able to voice activate this lock. And it does have a 4-digit code. So when you're putting this lock in, you are entering a code into it so that it knows that you want to be able to lock and unlock the door. So it does have a secure system in it so that not just anyone can lock and unlock your door. Thermostats, so for putting on heat and air conditioning, this is Wi-Fi based, but you can control thermostats with Alexa. Now, this does require wiring, so it does need to have an electrician come in and make sure that the Nest thermostat can go into your home or apartment and that they connect it electrically, and then it's paired with Alexa to be able to use your voice to control the temperature. Lights, we use Zigbee plugs or Hue lights, which are Zigbee. These can be controlled within the hub, so they don't have to have internet. And you can control the light bulbs, you can control the plugs and what's plugged into the light bulbs that way. This is a way for if you have lights that are on a switch that are overhead. This is a way that with Zigbee, you can use a light switch through Third Reality Switch, and it's a button that's put on over that switch so that it then is allowing someone to voice control it with Alexa, but it also still allows people to hit the button and to turn it on and off, and it won't affect the person still using Alexa. So sometimes when people have light bulbs on an overhead light, if the caregiver forgets or the person that lives with the other person that's using voice control forgets and they use the light switch to turn on and off the lights, that could confuse Alexa. Whereas with the reality switch, the person can use the light switch if they want, but then voice control doesn't get confused. For TVs, right now we are using the Logitech Harmony Hub. A lot of TVs now do have voice control for some things, and you can add a Fire Stick and you can add some things to allow control of a TV. But Drew and I see a lot of people where we need to customize how they're going to request what they need to do on their TV, and you can't do customization the way that a lot of the people we see need it built into the TV. So then we'll add on the Logitech Harmony Hub, which is our favorite right now, but it is being discontinued. It will be supported over the next year if you have one or if you can still get one. But there is the Broadlink Hub that's still available, and so we use that too. The nice thing and the hard thing about getting technology just off the shelf is that some of the things we love don't get to continue because maybe they're not as popular in the mass market. For controlling overhead fans, we can add a bridge is what it's called. It's an extra hub that allows that control of that fan with your voice. So there's lots of things like this. Blinds. So if someone needs to be able to, they're home alone, get the blinds up and down in certain rooms for both temperature control and also to get the sun out of your eyes or to make it brighter in a room. There is a bridge that allows motorized blinds, if they're installed, to be controlled through your voice or through a switch. And then bed control, I just put in there for people that have a hospital bed. There are ways to set up with universal controls to control the bed, and same with the power door. If people have a power door to get in and out of their home, but they need to have it voice activated, there is a garage door opener that can be added to that can do that. All of the things that we do in our state, in Minnesota, environmental controls are not paid by medical insurance, they're not paid by Medicare, and not paid by Medicaid. But we do have some individuals that have Medicare and Medicaid that are on our state planned waivers, and those can pay for these technologies. Otherwise, people do private pay. Many of the off-the-shelf technologies are not very expensive, or there's state grants or charitable organizations or GoFundMe. All right, I think I'm out of time and I'm done.
Great. And this is Megan Sue. We do have a question here.
Yes.
Somebody says, when you set up a system for a person and you customize commands, how do you document what was customized in case that person forgets those commands?
Yes. So what Drew and I usually do is make a a cheat sheet for the person. And we'll first start out with just writing it out while we're there, making sure that we tweak it and get it set up correctly. And then we can type it up and either email it to the person or put it on cardstock and laminate it. Or oftentimes we'll put it in a book if there's things that someone needs that way. We have used clipboards so that it could be right there in visual view so the person can see it at the level they need to with the products that they're using. So any way that's best to be set up for the person, but we definitely do have cheat sheets and give that to the person so that they have the commands and they can learn them and know them and a backup.
Thank you, Sue. That's a great idea. And Drew has been in the Q&A typing out answers to folks. So if you submitted a question about Zigbee, check the Q&A and see what your answer was. He's been on top of it. So thank you so much, Drew. Yeah, and thank you, Sue. We have a comment here. Somebody says, I love my Harmony remotes. I'm sad they're being discontinued, though.
We are very sad, too, and we've told them. So, yeah.
And then another question says, what type of technology did you say CMS should cover?
Oh, so we, for under the waiver plan in our state in Minnesota, they do cover things for life skills. So environmental controls, like I was talking about, where you can control your home, those are things that can get covered. And then also any memory aids or visual aids or lighting. All of those things to help someone stay living in a home of their own or be safe in the home they live in can be considered in Minnesota under our waiver plan.
Great.
I know every state is different, though.
Yeah, it is. We'll have to look into that in California and see what qualifies here.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Sue. And hopefully we'll have some time for more Q&A at the end.
Thanks.
We're going to go to our last presenter, Mike Dooley with Labrador. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Is that showing up?
Yep, it is good to go.
Great. So, thanks for taking the time to listen to what we're talking about. And we're on the other end of the spectrum. We're working on the next generation of technologies, particularly in robotics, to help people live more independently. And we're so new. We've been around for a while, but we're not launched. We haven't announced the product. We are in pilot studies. And so basically, I'm going to show you a lot of behind the scenes information about the technology and the results we're seeing in our pilots. And if you're interested, if you want to privately contact us and talk about whether you might have individuals or an association that might be interested in participating in the research, we can show a lot more, but we're just publicly not showing the robot today. But we're going to show you a lot, so hopefully you won't be disappointed. Quick background on us: the company's been around since 2017, and we founded ourselves to build this transformational category of assistive robots. We have a lot of background. I myself have worked 20 years in robots, starting all the way back with Lego and launching what's called the Lego Mindstorms product line. So some of you who have kids, or some of you who were kids in the late 90s, who've been all around that long, may have used that product. And that was sort of starting off with like embedding processors with motors and electronics and Lego bricks so kids can build their own robots that come to life. I moved on from, I don't know if it was moving up or I moved down, but I moved on to floor care and robotic floor care, and particularly robotic mopping. And it might not sound that exciting, but it was a pretty important development we were doing. So what we were launching there was robotic mops that could use Swiffer cloths or microfiber and dry dust and wet mop your floor. And in 2010, we launched a product line called Mint that would systematically clean your floors. You push a button, put the pad on, and it would automatically track where it's cleans, mop evenly, go around the edges, and park itself where it started. And we launched that for $200 retail back in 2010. This was a time when Roomba was random. It would just bounce around. And so what we're starting to do is sort of start to eject what sort of like aerospace or industrial technologies into consumer products to sort of make them be smarter. And it's pretty important. If you have a wet mop, you don't want it to be random. If you do that, you get puddles of water in some place, you get dry mist spots, and you sort of get mud in the middle. So it was really important. And so we got acquired 2 years after that. And that product line became Brava. So if you see Brava at Best Buy, usually a square robot or Bed Bath Beyond, that's actually the product line that we launched. And the technology that we did went on to Roomba. So if you're buying a Roomba that's about $400 or more today, that same navigation is what goes back and forth and tracks, and does a better job of cleaning and does a whole bunch of new other functions. The reason I bring this up is that there's a progression in technology. There's sort of like what unlocks each stage. And so when you go to sort of like into the products we have with Roomba today, is actually the iPhone, if I can sort of make sure it shows here, that the cameras in here. So Roomba's made in the millions of units. Smartphones are made in the billions, and that drives down all these costs, the processor, the phone, the gyro especially. So it's ironic, if you didn't have the iPhone in 2007, you really most likely wouldn't have smart robots that could systematically clean your house today. And so what we're looking at now is in 2017, we're saying, well, 10 years later, what's the new thing? And it's this. And no, we're not working on robotic dinosaurs or volcanoes or anything like that. But if you're looking at the scene, these are all kids looking through their smartphone at augmented reality. It's a superimposed animated scene in 3D overlaid on the table. And as they're moving their phone back and forth, that picture, that image is staying, right on, is staying on the image and in position. And so you're basically moving fake things overlaid into the real world. And the exciting part about this is not just the entertainment potential. I know that there's applications for assistive technology in this, but it's when we combine those parts, because they're going to be made in the billions. iPhones start having these depth cameras and LiDAR and stereo vision and all these applications, that we open up new things that when we connect with robots, we can actually move real things in the real world. And this is the jump that's about to happen. So when Roomba drives around right now, it knows where it is. It tracks its position. It doesn't really know much of what's in front of it. Now, certain models do, some of them don't, but in a really limited way. And the thing that tells it to stop is when the bumper hits the wall, and then it needs to turn around. This is what the next generation of robots are going to look like. And I'll switch over and show a video, hopefully here. Go to, yeah, it's right there almost. There we go. So this is, as I mentioned, we're going to show a preview. This is when we're doing pilot studies, our robot turns on. Basically, we see this environment, and this is a combination of different sensors coming together. This in particular is Intel RealSense, and think of it as like a radar vision scattering light across the environment to project things in 3D. And like, well, why is this important? Well, if you're going to have a robot that's taller than 3 or 4 inches, or it's going to carry something, let's say it's carrying food or medication or going around a person, it needs to, if it's that big, it needs to know what's in front of it. It knows how to navigate around it. So we have this ability that we didn't have 10 years ago to start having larger robots that are more functional, that can operate in very complex settings, actually homes, which are more diverse and more complicated than warehouses and other environments. So what we're doing is we're fusing these technologies that are coming down in price on augmented reality and making a robot that can basically go from place to place and carry reasonable amounts of load. And well, why is that important? It was because that's a big gap for a lot of individuals, as you probably know, in terms of their activities. So if you have folks that have pain or mobility issues, there can start to be issues where, okay, can they do the laundry? Because can they carry the laundry basket from place to place? Or can they set their own table? Or are they relying on a family member or a friend? So I'm going to jump into some of the applications of this, but what I wanted to show here was that what we're opening up, and this is sort of a way to look about it in a simplified way, is if you go out and spend money on a Roomba today, normally you pay a retail price for that. But if you average that over the life of the product or how much people typically use it, you're probably paying $10 to $20 a month for your robot. If you think of that, and that's some people that sounds really cheap compared to people that are cleaning. Other people it may sound expensive, but it's about $10 or $20 a month. If you go up, and if you've seen the robots in hospitals, if you've seen the ones that deliver all the meals to a ward, Or there's also, you're starting to see more robots in grocery stores. They have robots that are cleaning the floors, really big ones, much bigger than Roomba, or scanning the shelves. All those robots are in the thousands of dollars a month. And so those have been pretty exclusive. Like they can afford them in big hospital systems. You haven't seen them in nursing homes or or in senior living. And you definitely don't see them in the home. They're just too pricey to go there. What's really interesting is in this new phase, we're looking at something that a robot's $100 or $200 a month, and maybe less even in the future, can start to do sort of what we're doing with the big robots in larger spaces, but do something that's on a one-to-one level, that's helping an individual in their daily activities. So what all this translates to is Alexa, carry the laundry to the washer. We don't have robots yet that can do your laundry, but we can make a robot that's large enough to carry the laundry basket for someone to the washer and dryer and hold it in position and do an activity like allow someone who's in a wheelchair or has arthritis or has recovery from a stroke or Parkinson's, someone who has some impaired mobility or pain, that single task of carrying the 20 pounds of laundry is just is too painful, too difficult, and or too risky. And our working assumption there is if they stop carrying that basket, they stop doing the laundry. They don't load the laundry, they don't load the washer, they don't take it out of the dryer, and they don't fold and do the things. That sort of goes to someone else, and now they start this downward spiral of an activity. We had a gentleman, one of our first research participants, great guy, I think was probably in his 80s, had MS lifelong and especially paralysis on one side. And his task was just to fold the laundry. And it was really important to him. This is like a former Vietnam vet, former police chief, retired in Arizona. And his wife would do all those other steps. And then his thing he could still own was folding, because she would bring the basket to him after it came out of the dryer and let him do the folding. When he saw when we brought the product into his home, now he could do all that again. And you probably know this better than we do, but when we start talking about tools for independence of people, it's not just that they can take care of themselves better, it's that they can participate more and help people inside the home, that they want to contribute more and be more active. So we have a new product. It's an assistive robot. We're calling it a personal service robot, and we physically assist individuals who have pain and mobility issues. And it's really meant to be this new tool for daily independence, something that we couldn't have before. But at the same time, it also unlocks a lot of data and analytics that we think could help improve health outcomes, and that we can get the payers in the long run to help basically fund so that people have a better quality of life. So what we have, if you look at the operation of this, is the robot operates by a series of bus stops. And you can interface with it in a lot of ways. You can use Alexa, you could use your iPhone and touch a button, or you could even use a Zigbee button like we were talking in one of the earlier presentations. But imagine you want to basically, let's say, set up the dinner. So you could have the robot go into the kitchen and say, just go to the kitchen. And the robot will drive, it self-navigates from one place to the other. It avoids the cat and dog or other things, and it parks itself. And from there, you could sort of say, okay, I'm gonna put my utensils, I'm gonna take the food, the drink, all I wanna do, and then send it over to the dining table. And then the robot goes there, and then basically the person can unload what they do or send it over to the couch and have a snack while they're watching the TV. The whole mission here is, again, we're really trying to help people move things where they have that impairment themselves. And part of the inspiration was I watched my mom go from using a cane to a walker and a wheelchair. You realize that she's using that cane and walker, that's her extra pair of legs. And she doesn't have a free pair of hands as part of it, particularly when the items get more complicated and more heavy. So basically, this becomes this network of trying to help assist people with physical activity inside the home by moving things within reach. Now, the whole thing is like that creates a lot of stuff. Like as we're doing these pilot studies, the people in the studies come up with things like themselves. And I think one, I don't know if it's even in here, but like helping them clean. I'm like, well, how does it help them clean? It's not a vacuum cleaner. Well, helping them put like the Lysol and the Pledge and the cleaning, the sponge or the dusting mop, putting that all in one spot and say, okay, I'm going to go to this spot of the room and I'm going to clean. And this stuff holds things for me. or I want to go and collect all the, the recycling, not just for myself, but my husband who's, in the home office and leaving things around. So the mission that we're trying to do is take practical activities. The irony of like how we support people. We have a gentleman that's recovering from a stroke, and they deliver a meal to him like in a 20-pound box, of meals at his front door. It's like, he can't necessarily lift that box all by itself and carry it over, or at least it's risky if he does that. And so the idea is being this extra pair of hands for things that people can do. But the other part that we start doing is that think about medication adherence. Think about these pill reminders, all these devices that are already out there. Our goal is not to rebuild those or replace them, but what can we do to be a force multiplier? Let's say that pill reminder goes off and your iPhone sort of plays, a reminder, and that the pills actually come to where you are as a physical reminder and they sit there. We were just talking to a gentleman that's a vet from Afghanistan that was wounded in battle there with a spinal injury. And he goes, yeah, I have all the reminders, but I get distracted by shiny things going on during the day. So I'm supposed to take my pills at 10, I turn off the alarm, and then, it's 4 hours later before I realize it's there. So basically physically bringing things, or as people start having impaired mobility, if you're sitting and it's really painful, you're having a bad episode on the couch, or you don't feel that stable, you're not up in front of the kitchen as much, and are you staying hydrated? So this whole thing is, imagine key things that we could bring within range for individuals. On top of that, there's a lot we can be doing on just like the sensors that robot has. Could we be tracking somebody's body position? We could be giving them a warning to sort of say, hey, mom's not walking so stable right now, or something else is wrong, and inform family members or inform caregivers of that. So what I wanted to do is to say, again, we've got this robot. It's in pilot studies right now in the LA area. And what's really exciting to us is we're looking at the uses of what people are doing with it. So these charts show is like the top one is by day, and this is live data up until earlier in April. And these are the frequency of individuals using the robot for different things. So the dark green here is the table, and it's how many, they sent it there once on that day, sent it 4 times back and forth. And if you see table, you're going to see the orange, which is kitchen. And what he's doing is basically, this is an individual who's recovering from stroke. He's ambulatory, but he has limited use of carrying items. And so what he's doing is basically carrying things from place to place. Instead of doing the side shuffle back and forth, one item at a time, he sets up the tray with the food, puts it on the robot takes it over. Same thing for his laundry and those sorts of activities. What was really interesting is that, we just did our exit interview today with a woman with Parkinson's, with fairly advanced stage, who has sort of these good and bad days. And we're talking to her, and she has caregivers and the whole mix of support. But we were talking today, we're looking at her usage, and she goes, 13 times you've used it on these days and this day. It's a lot. That's actually every time she's hitting the button telling the robot to do something. And then there's sometimes it drops off. And part of that's because the robot, you still have to plug it in. It doesn't charge itself yet because of the prototype. But the other key thing she says, I said, why did you use it more that day than these other days? And it's like, and I was expecting her to say that, that was because the caregivers are around or something. It was like, those are my good days. Those are when I can do the most. The days when you're not seeing anything, those are my bad days. And what was really powerful about this is you're saying, I then asked her, it's like, does your doctor ask you to keep records of the good and bad days? You go, yeah, but I try to do it, and I've tried 3 different spreadsheets. We don't, and it's like, just seeing this interactivity sort of gives an idea of like, okay, how many good days is she having? How many days is she just, really having difficulty? So what we really open up is sort of this new class of things where this mission of this robot first is that we want people to have something that makes their life better, that they welcome into their home. And from there, that we start getting information that's really helpful about understanding how they're doing to support them, their caregivers, and the health system, and basically improve that quality of life for folks and have a product that sort of gives them a little bit of independence and control back in their life. So that's the overview. And again, I can't show you the robot on this broad of a forum, but if you're interested, definitely feel free to reach out to myself or to Carrie Huffman. And we are piloting starting in LA, And then we're doing other locations with partners in other parts of the country. And once we talk to you, we can show you the testimonials and the interviews we're doing with the participants and get your feedback. So I think that, again, thank you for taking the time and happy to answer questions.
This is Megan. Thank you, Mike. That looks amazing. Juan, you have your hand up. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk if you do want to verbalize a question for us. So Juan, if you want to unmute and ask your question. Juan, are you there? Do you have a question? Okay, well, we'll come back if you do. If anyone else has questions, please send them to us in the Q&A or the chat. Drew and Sue have been working behind the scenes on the Q&A, answering all the questions that have come in. So we don't have too many open questions. Yes, Vienna, you're right. You don't have the ability to unmute yourself as an attendee, but I unmuted Juan since his hand was up. Thank you so much, Mike, for coming. Does anybody have questions? Please send them to us in the Q&A here on Zoom. And then Carrie shared in the chat, if you want a preview of the robot, to email Carrie@labradorsystems.com. So that's Carrie@labradorsystems.com. If we don't have any other questions, we'll go ahead and close the webinar out. Oh, I'm sorry. There's a question here from Fran who wants to know, I think, Mike, this is for you. What will the cost be for the Labrador robot?
So we're still looking at that. I think, as I said on that one chart, we're looking at something to be some upfront and then like $100 a month as a subscription to it, in that general range. So we're trying to sort of equate it. We definitely don't replace a caregiver by any means, but if you look at someone getting home care, just a single visit's about $100. So if we can get in that target, that's 1/10 to 1/20th of any sort of other product that's out there anywhere close to it. So that's our initial target. And then as we increase in volume, just like Roomba gets lower, I think we'll be looking at more base prices that are more affordable. And ideally, hopefully have insurance pick up some of the tab as we can show some of these health results.
That ties right into our next question. Vincent wants to know, are you pitching it to get it covered under Medi-Cal?
You know, we're taking time. If you have advice on how to do that, the stage that we want to first do is show that people use it. And we get a lot, that data you're seeing is fresh. We didn't have that data 2 months ago on like the activity patterns. And so I think it's a process of education of starting to show the reimbursers and everyone what the potential value is and what they can be able to get out of that. So that's our goal is to, if there's any way to pilot early with them, and we've been talking to a lot of insurance companies, our biggest thing is to get it on the market first, get the data, and then start showing these use cases.
Great, thank you, Mike. I'm not seeing any other questions. Thank you so much, Mike, Sue, and Drew for being here with us today. And thank you for everyone for attending. So when you close out of this session, there will be a SurveyMonkey that will open up where you can provide evaluation for this workshop. And then we are all going to be back in the general session main room in I think it starts at 3:05 actually. Let me check my calendar. Let's see, we are at 3:05, that's correct. We'll be back in the main room at 3:05 for our closing session with the president of the California Emerging Technology Fund. And then after that, we will have networking rooms from 3:45 to 4:30. So we hope to see you in our closing sessions, and take care. Bye, guys.
Thank you.